Welcome to On the Spot, a brand new podcast brought to you by the internal communications team here at Portland Community College. This is where we get straight to the answers about the questions you, our PCC employees, want to know the most about. Every episode, we dive into topics that you have submitted, whether it's about the college's operations, our community, or the amazing people behind the scenes. And the best part? Each episode is short, sweet, and to the point. Perfect for a quick listen during your day. Episodes will be released every 2 weeks, so make sure you're subscribed. I'm your host, Khylie Gardner, Associate Vice President of Marketing and Communications. Today, our guest is Kurt Simonds, Vice President, Strategy, Policy, and Integrated Planning here at PCC. And Kurt's here to talk to us about all of the policy work and formalization processes that have been going on in his division for the last number of years, and those things that are starting to get into action here at PCC. Kurt, thanks for joining us in the studio today.
You're welcome, Khylie.
It's so good to see you. And I know a lot about SPIP because I have the good fortune of serving on the president's cabinet with you. But I'm hoping today we can peel back some of those layers and talk to me like I don't know anything, and we'll figure it out together.
Okay.
All right. So tell me a little bit about SPIP. How did it come to be?
Well, the Strategy, Policy, Integrated Planning Division at PCC started just over almost a year and a half ago in July of 2023. And it was founded as a result of the recommendations from our accreditation visit in July of 2022, when our accreditors recommended that we take several steps to improve our strategic planning, our integrated planning, and our policy framework. So those were the specific recommendations that they made. And what they mean by integrated planning is that when we are looking at facilities plans, technology plans, sustainability plans, student enrollment plans, that we make sure that those things are all aligned and working together to forward the goals of the college, the mission of the college. On the policy side, what they recommended was that we have a much clearer policy framework for the college. I can get into more details on this later, but we have our official policies are board-approved policies by our board of directors. We also have a number of college policies around things like technology use and student conduct and things like that. And then we have the EAC, our Educational Advisory Council, that makes policy recommendations about academic programs and also student conduct. So that's been fairly siloed and fragmented. So the recommendation was to pull all those together into a coherent policy framework. So that's part of the work that we're doing in SPIP as well.
So, Kurt, can you tell me a little bit more about who's on the team and what are the roles that exist within this brand new division or relatively new division?
So SPIP was formed out of the areas of effectiveness and planning led by Diedrich Steinmetz, institutional effectiveness led by Laura Massey and her team, the grants team led by Vanessa Woods and the group that works with her, strategic planning coordinator, Sarah Rose Evans, policy coordinator, Jeannie Wynn, and Emergency Preparedness Coordinator, Lorraine Churchill. So that's the team at SPIP, and our newest member is Marilyn Darrell, who's my executive assistant, who is going to be very helpful going forward in getting all our web pages updated and getting the information out there on policy development and all the other things that we're doing in SPIP.
I think that's so exciting because policy for folks who are in direct service roles, I think, can really feel really far away from what we're doing day to day, but we're actually all impacted by the policies that govern us at PCC. And to your point, right, there's lots of different pockets where that work is happening. So it's exciting to see that starting to come together.
Yeah, and part of the goal is also to make both the process more transparent and the policies themselves more available, so that if people need to look something up, they need to find details about a particular policy, we're going to make it easier for them to find, and we're also going to make it easier for people to propose policy changes and revisions.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think that's really great. You talked a little bit about some of the work and where policy lives, right? The board policies, the college policies, and our partners in the education advisory space. Can you talk a little bit more about what is grounding us in this policy work? And I'm thinking in particular about some of the shared definitions that we have been working so hard to establish here across all of these areas. How do you bring that together, right, if all these silos exist?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me, while I'm on it, why don't I read the actual recommendation about policy that we're responding to, which is that we have a comprehensive alignment of policies, procedures, and administrative guidelines that are clearly stated, easily understandable, readily accessible, and regularly reviewed. So that's our goal for the policy work. In terms of how we're going to try and ground that work, we're looking at trying to create policy definitions. What's a policy? What's a procedure? What's a practice? What categories of policy are there between financial policies, student policies, academic policies, and so forth, and trying to and looking at some of the models and best practices other colleges have used to create those definitions and to create those policy categories. So last year we spent the entire year with a group that was called the Policy Governance Administration Task Force, with Dr. Benning's leadership and the participation of several administrators, faculty members, representatives from the EAC, staff, and we went through an extensive process of coming up with those policy definitions and policy categories and creating a framework for how we want to restructure our policy library, say. And then we also created flowcharts for how we're going to review existing policies and then also create and vet and approve new policies. So we spent a good long time really digging into the details and coming up with the framework and the process. And now this year we're actually in the beginning stages of implementing that new structure. And I can tell you more about that if you're interested.
I am really interested, actually. I would love to talk to you about what that implementation process looks like. And specifically, I think about how our employees can see themselves in that implementation. What opportunities are there for folks to get involved in this policy work?
Well, as it unfolds, we will be updating our policy websites and making the work much more visible to people. And as we go through policy review and policy development, there'll be opportunities for public comment on policies and even opportunities for people to propose policies in the new structure. So that's coming. We're not there yet. The first stage is we're doing a complete inventory of our existing policies between board policies, college policies, and EAC policies. We have about 220 existing policies that exist on 3 different websites, and it's very siloed. So we're going through the process of reviewing all of those, trying to decide which ones are good as they stand, which ones may need revision, which ones can be sunsetted or archived. There are some that combine policy and procedure that need to be kind of teased apart and put into those different categories. So we're going through that process of doing that policy inventory now, sort of behind the scenes. Once we do that, we will be able to identify those policies that are the highest priority for needing to be updated, and we'll be working through a process of making that happen. Now, we will have an opportunity for public comment on new policies that are developed. I'm not sure right now what the process will be for commenting on existing policies. I'm not sure we've decided that yet. But in the future, when someone might want to propose a new policy or a change in policy, that will come to Jeannie Nguyen, who's the policy coordinator within my division of SPIP. We'll make a determination on is it a board policy, is it an operating policy, is it a procedure, what category does it belong in, and then we'll be going through a vetting process with a policy advisor who's an expert in that area. And if we decide to move that forward as a policy proposal, those policies will be available on the website for people to review and make comments on. We'll have a public comment period on every new policy that's proposed.
I think that's so great. And what I really appreciate about the framework that's being laid out is that there are really clear ways to make policy, which I feel like is a word that we've said 100 times already, feel really real for people, right? And for folks to see themselves in that work.
Right. I think at PCC we've had historically, and I've been here 19 years. We've had a lot of people who've been here for a long time, who have a lot of institutional knowledge, who kind of have an understanding of the way things get done and how things happen. But we haven't always had really clear documentation on all our processes or all our policies, or even know where to go to look and where to find them. So this is a process of trying to really update that policy library and establish clearly documented procedures so that it's not mysterious. And as new people come into the college, or students who are coming into the college want to find a policy or want to find a procedure, that will be well documented and available to them. So it's really an effort to take some of the mystery out of the policy universe.
Oh, so you're not the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain anymore.
Well, I never was, but I think institutional knowledge has been, very important at PCC. We've been an institution that operates really often by relationships, by face-to-face communication, by kind of just that's the way we do things. And particularly during COVID, that we didn't have that available as much. We've had a lot of people retire and leave the organization and take that institutional knowledge with them. So with Dr. Benning's leadership, we're really rebuilding the documentation around policies and procedures so that no matter who comes or goes or what's happening in the college, we have clearly stated policies and procedures that are accessible to people.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, for me, I think about our students and how having these sort of like continuity pieces in place and really clear and widely understood by the folks who come in and work at all of our campuses and centers every day ultimately allows us to serve the students better, right? Because we're not expending the energy and taking up capacity when so many people are feeling like capacity is limited and time is limited, trying to figure out how this place runs, right? And so it allows us to free up that time to really be serving our students as effectively as possible.
Right. We shouldn't have to guess on some of these things, and we shouldn't have to take a long time to find the information we're looking for. So our goal is to make it very transparent, have a policy library available on the web. We've looked at other colleges and the models they have for policies and procedures. They're easy to find, easy to understand, and that's our goal, to do that over the course of this coming year as we go through the implementation phase of this process.
Thanks. Yeah, well, Kurt, I think that this is really exciting work, and I know it's really in motion, and you and the team are working hard behind the scenes, and so much of the community is pulling for you to do this work really in service of all of us. So thank you to you and to Jeannie and Dr. Benning. Thanks for joining us today, Kurt. And thanks to those of you who are listening. We appreciate that you've tuned in. Our first season of On the Spot at PCC will feature bi-weekly episodes where we bring in guests from across the college to chat about work they are supporting and answer your questions. I'm Khylie, and it's been a pleasure chatting with you. We'll see you next time.